so we're sitting down with Peter Johnston of the DUP today on the pod.
Eventually they got to me. Well, when they asked me, they said, "Pete, will you run?" I originally said no because I was, thought
Too much
young.
going on.
I'm too young. I don't have enough experience. Let me get my feet under the table for a bit. And then they came back and said, "Pete, we'd like you to put your name forward." So I spoke to my wife, and she said, "Under no circumstances are you to get into politics." Yeah. So the way we do mayors and deputy mayors in Northern Ireland is it's through a system called the Hunt, which is I know it's
What the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, democracy is something that is very easily taken for granted.
Yep.
It is such a hairline balance that has to be struck. And I can see certainly over the short term potentially a bit of a reset coming in wider politics. But let's not forget, we had on the other side, next to Leo Ferrari, they were threatening violence. So you can imagine what that does when that currency of negotiation is used. You can imagine what that does for the other side of the community. They're saying, well, hang on a second. They came out and threatened violence if there was going to be any infrastructure, north-south. The DUP have been very clear that they want to see Stormont return. It was on all of our election literature at the last council election. It should return on a basis that is fair for everyone, and that includes unionists and nationalists.
Okay, guys, so we're sitting down with Peter Johnston of the DUP today on the pod, and I just want to preface this one, as I was saying to you off air, that I'm a unionist supporter. I think that we're stronger in the union, and that is just my political stance. I have lots of friends from the Falls and are totally opposite to that, and they want the United Ireland, and I listen to their point of view, and I just personally think that.
Yeah. Perfect.
So now that's out of the way, we'll just jump straight into it on how did you get involved in politics, mate? Like, how did that come around? Like, how do you go?
That's a good question.
How do you come around from probably going to the Box nightclub in Belfast and all the rest of it to getting into politics?
Well, it's a good question, and it's an interesting story. So I unashamedly was at the bottom of a very long list when it came to the council position that I'm in. So I joined the party in, I think it would have been mid-2018.
But how did you even get to that point? Like, how did you even make
how did
that?
I join?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose in my day job, right, I am quite fortunate. I get to travel all over the world and sell energy products. And one of the strongest selling points that we have, and it's something that I'm very proud of, is that we can put a Made in UK sticker on the side of our products. And actually Northern Ireland and the products that we deal with, Northern Ireland is known for power generation, believe it or not.
Right.
Worldwide, as Germany would be known for car manufacture, for example.
Comes into my mind, FG
Wilson, yeah, very much. I mean, huge part of Northern Ireland's DNA, and sold on the strength of this is a made in UK product, and that carries a lot of credibility in the markets that we're in. So before I even got involved with the party, there was part of me that had a pride. When I was going out to these, and I've worked in Nigeria, all over the Middle East, kind of parts of North Africa, Southeast Asia. When I was going to these countries, I was going with a product with a union flag on it, and I was, proudly saying, this is made in the UK. Yeah. And not only that, made in Northern Ireland. And so I was very, and pride is right. I was proud of that. I was proud of that identity. Yeah. I was proud to be saying, this is part of my identity. This is part of the product that we sell. And all the brand assets that come along with that were something that I held dear. So when I, on top of that, I naturally was quite opinionated about my local area. I would have been the first to throw a stone if there was something that I seen that I didn't think was right. Yep. I would be the first to complain at that time, if I thought, we need to be doing better at X, Y, and Z. Yep. So I joined the party in 2018.
Okay. So how do you go about that? Do you just like get in touch with someone who's in the party at the minute and be like, look, I'm interested in joining? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So believe it or not, it's even easier now because we have a website, and on the page there's a become a member button, and you fill in a few questions. And one of the things that's actually been really encouraging is over the past, I would say, 3 to 6 months, we have seen our membership grow faster than certainly the last 5 years that I can remember.
That would go against the mainstream media's narrative right now, mate, to be honest.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think that, but our membership has grown. Even locally in the East Antrim Association, we've had more new members in the past 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
Then so the process is now easier, very easy to get involved, and we have a huge range of people. We have legal people in the associations, we have engineers, teachers, professionals, people who are retired, we have a mix of women, men, all ages. So it's good. And it was like that when I joined too, very welcoming. And I was still obviously very new into the party at that stage. And there was a by-election in Carrick.
So how do you get involved in that?
Well, this is what happened. So the by-election came around, and at this stage, I had no interest whatsoever in having anything to do. I was happy to be involved with the association. And it's great because when you're in the association, you've got the MP there, you've got the MLA there, the other councillors, and you can really up close and personal. People are asking difficult questions, and it's a good forum for that. You can be quite challenging to your MP, to your MLAs,
So you felt you were already involved in it. You were getting right in there.
I was involved, but I certainly wasn't ever in my mind to have like a front of house kind of role. I was more than happy to be involved with the association. And what happened was there was a by-election called. Sadly, a councillor in Carrick passed away.
Right.
And he was a guy called Jimmy Brown, who actually I knew. He used to go to Woodlands Church. And he sadly passed away, and because he was an independent, it basically caused a by-election. Right. And the by-election was interesting because there was only 9 months of the term left. Right. So, there wasn't. It was a big ask for all the candidates because you were essentially having to do a full campaign for a 9-month term.
And that was to be a councillor.
That was to be a councillor. Yeah. And so there was a number of people.
What age were you being at this time? Sorry.
I think.
It's been young enough.
26, 25, 26.
Aye.
So still young. I mean,
younger than me right now.
I'm still young. I still feel young doing it. No, it would have been older than that. It would have been 27 maybe.
No, my age now.
Yeah.
Right.
And.
But still, for that world, is young.
Yeah, and certainly, I still feel relatively wet behind the ears when it comes to it all.
100%. I look at a councillor, I think 60 years of age straight away.
But I think one of the things, whenever they eventually did get to me, to the bottom of the list.
So what went through the list? Do you want to do yes, no? Do you want to do yes, no? And you were like...
And then eventually they got to me. Well, when they asked me, they said, Pete, will you run? I originally said no because I was, thought I'm too
much
young.
Going on.
I'm too young. I don't have enough experience. Let me get my feet under the table for a bit, and then they came back and said, "Pete, we'd like you to put your name forward." And so I spoke to my wife, and she said, "Under no circumstances are you to get into politics or have anything to do with politics."
Well, shit.
And then third time round, I thought, and it's something that I'm actually now really glad I did because at the time I thought, I've often had strong opinions about the place where I call home. Yep. I have been the first to throw a stone or complain when I thought there wasn't something that I would have done it that way. And so I thought, well, it would be slightly hypocritical of me to have that position and then yet at the same time not even put my name on a ballot paper. Yeah. So I thought, if anything, I didn't think I was going to certainly win the seat. I thought, if anything, this will give me the kudos. I'll throw the kitchen sink at it. I'll do my best to get elected. But if I don't get elected, that's my kudos. I've put my name on the ballot paper. I've given it a shot. Yeah. And this has now earned me my right to moan.
100%.
And you know, we ran a very positive campaign. I made it very clear to everyone who was helping me that I didn't want any negativity. I didn't want any of the other candidates. I didn't want us to talk down or badly about the
You know that there's a very bad way of doing politics by the looks of things, because every politician I've looked at from here to Timbuktu plays on fear, plays on the opposition's weaknesses. That is just how it's always been played. The art of war.
Well,
but you done it a different way.
I decided to do it, you know, that way, and I think there's scope for that. You know, there's a lot in the media, and all of us are guilty of it. I'm sure I've done it in the past too, where, you know, when a question's asked of you, nearly the first jump is what everybody else is doing and what everybody isn't doing, and I think that is actually it becomes a negative way to do politics, rather than, you know, focusing on what is priority for you, for your party, what's the agenda, you know, and then ultimately the people are deciding on what your policies are rather than what everybody else's isn't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I get where you're coming from.
And I think people, you know, to be fair, in a by-election, it's hard to get that same sort of numbers out. The media doesn't have as much of an interest, you know, it's not nationwide, you know, a lot of people didn't even know there was an election happening, you know, so, but I was very grateful, you know, a lot of people came out and supported me, and so
you got that one, that was
that was
the first step in?
That was my step into council, yeah.
Fucking right, mate. So you got that, obviously buzzing, and then you got your foot through the door. And what was it like just getting involved in that? Like, that's a big change, mate. Now you've got people looking at you going, you need to fucking sort this out, because the place is this and this and this, and you know, parking fucking wardens here, blah 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 blah. You must get it flat out. Yeah,
and it's a difficult one, because the role of a councillor takes.
Now this would have been Carrick Council, or
no? This was Mid and East Antrim. This was the first term of Mid and East Antrim. Yeah. Right, okay. The role of a councillor is very mixed. You know, there are some cases where you are an intermediary between people. There's some times when you're an advocate, you're a lobbyist, you're a representative. You know, so council and councillors can wear many different hats at many different times. And I think one of the things that really opened my eyes early on is, just how few people actually know what the role of council is. And so there was a lot of times where, you know, people would maybe be engaging with a conversation or contacting me or complaining about something. And I probably had thought at the time, goodness, that's a council issue, you know, and all of a sudden you're realizing, oh, goodness, that's nothing to do with council. You know, we haven't. So your role as a councillor then isn't necessarily in those set circumstances to say, yes, you know, I know how I can get this fixed for you. It's actually being an advocate and saying, look, whilst this isn't a role for council, I can maybe contact that department, or there's maybe someone there I know who can help you on that. So that was probably one of the biggest learning curves. But I mean, I'm still learning, you know, there's still, I would say a councillor doing this 30 years is still learning. Things change, departments change, and
I love what you just said there. I'm still learning, and why I love what you said there is because I saw a thing from a very, very smart person on LinkedIn that I follow, and he put up a picture, and one picture was a doer and the other picture was a thinker, and in front of the thinker it was learn, a small book of do, but the doer had learn, do, and got much more done in the same period of time. I'm an advocate for that. Learn as much as you need to learn to get going, and then learn on the job.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what everyone does.
Absolutely.
You know, whenever you start doing sales, for example, you don't just go, right, let me learn about sales here. You go out there, hey, how are you? And you figure out what you've done wrong. I'm not going to do that next time. I'm not going to mention that next time. Whatever. And you kind of go from there. Right.
And do you know, actually, just on that as well, it's actually something that I have tried to encourage. Whenever there has been people who have been interested in getting involved with council or even get involved with the party. In fact, even in my day job, you know, whenever we had new people starting, one of the things that I have always encouraged them is to wear your naivety with pride. Because one of the best things that a new organization can do is actually to listen to new people coming in and to make them feel as though there's no stupid questions. And to be fair, in council and even within the party, that was very much instilled within me, and I felt comfortable to ask stupid questions, what I thought was stupid questions. But it's actually a really good thing, because what can happen with these big organizations, and in fact any company, is that you can get stuck in a rut and in a way of doing things.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times it's whenever you have somebody new in who goes, well, why are you doing it that way?
Yeah.
And it's nearly been like, I've seen it before where people turn around and go, but right enough, we've been doing this for years, and there's somebody new. They're looking at it with a fresh set of eyes and have come up with a new idea. I think it was it an IBM? They had a junior engineer.
I think I've seen this.
You've seen the story where the junior engineer told the CEO they were working on a piece of technology. He basically told the CEO it wasn't going to work and that he should scrap the project. And the board had invested millions to get it to this stage. They were about to launch this product. Everything was about to go live. The shareholders were kind of all ready to go make their money. The engine was running, the marketing team was going, and the CEO had the balls to say, do you know what, I'm going to trust this guy.
Yeah.
And it turned out, it saved the company, whatever, millions upon millions, because he listened to one of these junior engineers who maybe had a fresh set of eyes on it. So I think it's really important, and it's something that, in my day job that I've always encouraged, and also in council, when there's new councillors coming in, even for myself, I kept reminding myself that it's fine to ask this question. Maybe it will be a good question. And if it's an obvious answer, well, then that's an opportunity to learn. So
100%.
That's kind of the way I've tried to do it.
I mean, I agree with you, but see what I find, right? And just in business, because I'm speaking to business owners and people who can kind of turn the cog on budgets. What I find is everyone has an ego. Everyone. I'm yet to meet someone who doesn't have a slight ego.
Yeah.
And whenever you're dealing with egos, like you said there, the CEO, he obviously dropped his ego to let that happen.
Absolutely.
But egos get in the way of a lot of things. A lot of wars start over egos.
That's right.
A lot of nasty things happen over egos.
That's right.
So appealing to someone's ego is always good. I would say to someone who is young, like 18, 19, going, Josh, how do I do this? I say, first things first, find someone who can push you further in that goal and just say, I'll work for free or whatever. Say, you're so amazing. I want to learn from you. I will work for nothing. I really look up to you. They'll see that message and go, this little fucker, 100%, like, because it bigs them up, and then they'll bring them in and go, look, this kid, he idolizes me, blah, blah, blah. And that's ego play on that. It's part of life. And everyone does have a slight ego. Like, whether it's, someone complimented you on your suit or whatever it is, it kind of does get your head a little bit bigger.
It does,
Right, so you were in council for, how long were you in council until you went into the mayor position?
So the mayor role, it started 2020.
2020.
Yeah, and
so 2 years, or
well, we had the first year. I had the end of that year for the first mandate. Had another election. There was another year of that, and then it was the next year after that. So the second year of the second mandate, as such.
Right. Okay. And how does that happen as well? Because that's a totally different thing.
Yeah. So the way we do mayors and deputy mayors in Northern Ireland is it's through a system called the Hunt. Which is, I know, it's.
What the fuck?
I know.
The Hunt?
So it's called the Hunt. It's spelled with I think it's a French word.
Right.
And basically that essentially calculates political weight in a chamber.
Right. Okay.
And allocates a picking system, almost like you remember when you're picking football teams.
Yeah.
So it allocates a picking system, for all of the roles and responsibilities within a council. So things like the mayor, deputy mayor, number of positions on committees, chairs of committee, vice chairs of committee, they're all positions of responsibility, and they get allocated based on political weight of the chamber. So if a party had, say, 75% of the seats in a particular council, you can see how there would need to be a system to ensure that that is represented in the picking order of the position, so they would then end up getting most of the picks, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but
it's a really complicated algorithm.
I was just thinking, I've never heard of this. So that's how most councils work in the UK or just Northern Ireland?
In Northern Ireland, as far as I know, because I know in the likes of London, they would vote for a mayor.
They do.
So what happened for my term is that obviously being in the DUP, we had picks for years 2 and 3 to be mayor. So it was then an internal vote within our party for who was going to who's going to do it.
And you said, right, I'll do it. Well, let's go.
Yeah, again, another one. Like I it wasn't an overly popular year to do it. We were just in the mouth of COVID. And very challenging. We were in the middle of lockdown.
So when did you start? You started during lockdown.
Yeah, would have been so. Well, we started off in February, and the mayor started in June. The AGM.
Oh, mate.
Yeah. So
mate.
it was like,
that's right when things started opening up again.
And I remember at the start. One of the things you do is kind of like, what's your theme for the year, and what's and it was a good I was, again, probably very naive in thinking, this COVID thing, it's going to be done with in a couple of months. So my theme for the year was recognition. First of all, recognizing all the volunteers, people who had done, all amazing things during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Then the recovery stage, helping businesses get back up on their feet from, being locked down and closed for...
Loads of them didn't open up again, man.
Yeah, it was a really, really brutal time for...
Well, just think about it. They were still getting told to pay rent. And you couldn't trade.
It was brutal. It was brutal, and there was a number of businesses and self-employed and individuals who slipped through the net. The government did put through huge amounts of recovery packages and were throwing money left, right, and centre, but it didn't cover everyone and everything. And
well, I remember the arts were kind of excluded, but then you had dodgy fuckers who were taking things in cash and not putting true money through, and then they were complaining, and I was going, fuck off, you chancer.
There was a whole host, and that obviously was very challenged. So, I wanted to do, first of all, recognition, recovery, and then celebration as we went into the centenary year. But
which all got through right in the back burner.
It was unbelievable what a year it was. But I still loved it because I was very fortunate that the recognition bit actually nearly took up the whole term. And one of the things I'm sure some of the people might even remember that we did was the certificates of recognition.
Right.
And it was certificates that people could nominate, other businesses. Could be wee Jimmy round the corner who was picking up their prescription, or different individuals. It was at schools and all over. And I can remember whenever we started it off, within the first week, we had 30 nominations, and this was all over the borough, as far to Ballymena, ones in Larne, amazing ones in Carrick. And we were like, that's class, 30 people in a week. By the end of the term, and I remember actually saying to my PA at the time, I said, Lisa, I want us, number one, to where possible, hand deliver all of these. Mm-hmm. And two, I'm going to hand sign them all. So,
right.
This is authentic. We want people to know that if they've been nominated for something, it's been for good reason. Mm-hmm. And if I can put the effort in to bring it to them, I want that to be the case. And nursing homes and everything, like, it was phenomenal. So we did 30 in the first week, and by the end of the year, we hit, I think it was over 950.
Happy days, man. That's probably the only thing that came from that period that was nice.
Which I know, and it was class. It was such a humbling experience. There's so many of them stick in my head, and I remember one, where I went to this woman, and she was in a wee terrace house, and I looked on my notes, because we were doing sometimes 15 of these a day.
Right.
And I had notes for each of the visits, so I knew who I was going to see. And I can remember looking at this thing going, this is saying this woman has cooked 3,000 dinners. We're at the wrong address. We have to be going to an industrial estate or, an industrial kitchen.
Nope.
This just cannot be right. And I can remember knocking the door, and this wee woman coming out, and right enough, from lockdown hit, she turned her oven on and it just did not go off. People were bringing her bags of spuds, big things of mince. She was doing stews, curries, and just our door was just non-stop into the community. Wow. And I thought, like, how amazing is that? Who am I? Who am I? This 29-year-old, whoever it was at the time, bringing her a certificate of him. She was, so enamored by, and this woman has literally dedicated the last 6 months of her life.
Yeah.
It was such a privilege to do it. I absolutely loved it. I'd see all those wee stories, I wish I had kept the diary, because there was something new, something unique every day, and it was class just to be the face of council for that, and the...
Well, tell me this. What would be kind of a fact that not many people would know about being a mayor in Northern Ireland?
Oh, good
maybe
question.
A privilege, maybe something that you do that no one knows about, maybe, just something that they share with the people that wouldn't really know. I mean, I didn't really know anything about it.
I think one of the things that, well, speaking only for myself, I think one of the things that is often misunderstood about being a mayor is, remember a lot of people saying, oh, you're the mayor now, you must be raking it in, but the salary for being mayor is an extra £1,000 a month, and
right
now you get your council wage, and then which is it's 15.5 or something a year, and then
is that all?
And then you get £1,000 a month for being mayor. So it was an interesting conversation every time, because people sort of think once you're the mayor, you've landed it, you're rolling in it. But in actual fact, after tax, if I had have calculated the number of hours, because it's 7 days a week, morning to night, if you calculate the number of hours, you certainly wouldn't be doing it for the money.
100%. The DMs are on fire, and you're having to reply to people here.
Then, I mean, you could go back to that time. People contact you every other day. And I think one of the other things too, during that period, because there was so much changing every day. Remember all the new lockdown rules would come in.
We'll get into that. It was fucking ridiculous.
All the new schemes that were coming out, I found it really challenging, because I hate letting people down, but I would have maybe got a phone call or a message, I'm a single mum of one, I get X amount of this benefits, I work 16 hours a week here, and my child's this, and we get that, what am I entitled to? And it was only maybe announced an hour ago, and it was really, I found that really hard, because then I sort of felt like I'm letting these people down because I don't know all the answers, but you're right, it was 24/7.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that you certainly aren't doing it for the money.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't even know you got paid, to be fair. I knew you got paid in the council.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that you got more for the mayor, but obviously one of the privileges is obviously getting that little office. You get the little office, don't you? You get the office, the mayor's office. That's right. Which has a bit of probably history there.
Yeah.
I mean, how old would Carrick Council be?
Well, obviously we're now Mid and East Antrim Council.
I know, but you would have been in the Carrick Council building.
What has happened is we have kept the 3 town halls from the legacy councils.
Yeah.
Carrick, Ballymena and Larne.
Yeah.
So there's a mayor's parlour, a mayor's office in each of those town halls. Carrick, goodness, I couldn't get to the exact date.
Is it old?
But it is old. Like I know the you ever see the gold mace that would be Carrick. There's the mace and the sword. I mean, they're ancient. They're really, really old. But
it's mad that
hundreds of years.
Nowadays, right, it's a bit more played down than if you were mayor in, like, say, 1903, you would be like the king of Carrick. You know what I mean? It would be a different kind of thing.
I mean, I was chatting earlier on. I was in Baghdad last week with work, and we were coming out of the airport, and there was this entourage of cars, blue lights, all the white Prados flying past, and oh wow, it must be a big deal. And they said, oh no, it's just some like, I don't even think it was as much as a councillor, I think he said, so like, for them, mayors are in jets and things like that, but no. And I think, to be fair, Josh, I think it has changed for the better, because the role of a mayor, and even as a councillor, should always be about I mean, you are essentially serving the people who have elected you there, and you should be subservient to the electorate.
Absolutely.
There has been too much in political history, and this isn't in Northern Ireland. This is a global issue, where politicians have used their position of influence and power, and have forgotten that in actual fact it's the general public who have put them there. They are governing by consent. And
look at France at the minute. France is up in arms at the minute. There's a big protest every day. That fella got shot or whatever, and they've just ramped it up. 4 million on the streets in Paris every day, and I'm going, wow.
Yeah, I mean, democracy is something that is very easily taken for granted.
Yeah,
it is such a hairline balance that has to be struck. And you know, I can see certainly over the short term, potentially a bit of a reset coming in wider politics.
Well, so there should be, because I mean, what the modern day democracy was brought in by America. America was kind of the caveat for people should have rights. People should have. Am I getting this wrong? I know there was workers' rights, obviously, in the trade unions and stuff like that, but I'm on about like the current day democracy came in force whenever America started becoming a superpower, overthrow or the Civil War, obviously in America, kicked the British out. Britain then decided we're going to be a bit more of a democracy here, give people some power back, and the monarchy kind of walked away a bit.
Well, probably democracy as we know it now. I know. I mean, Westminster is kind of, they talk about it being like the mother parliament. It is one of the earliest democracies in the world. But
in the world?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Serious?
I'm maybe going to get fact checked on that.
You may have to. I don't fucking believe that for a second.
Yeah. But you know, as far as I know, the Westminster and London is one of the earliest democracies. But when you talk about kind of the modern day politics, I mean, even what has happened in the last 20 years is completely reshaped how politics and governance is happening. And you can see the shifts that's happening in America. I mean, just look at yesterday, all those, the kind of judges going against each other and where those power kind of decisions are really falling on, huge.
Just because you brought that up, there's a question I have down here, and the question is, do you think that media in Northern Ireland is impartial? But I'm going to caveat that with the fact that I know media is not impartial in almost everywhere in the world, because there's usually someone getting money from somewhere. So do you believe that NI is impartial? Because obviously America is very well known at the minute not to be impartial. It's based on what political party you're going with. Have we got that in Northern Ireland, or is it impartial in Northern Ireland?
We have, and I know I'm maybe teaching you to suck eggs on this. So we have the BBC, which is a public broadcaster. So that's funded by the TV license. It's a it.
But can you call that impartial? Well, because that would be the government's view.
Here's what I was going to say. The BBC. I think what has happened in more recent times has, strived for impartiality, but what has happened is the lines between a commentator and a journalist has been blurred.
Right.
So commentator is someone who can come on, splurge their opinion of whatever that may be, and a journalist who's paid by the BBC, they have to they have to act within the broadcasting guidelines, so they have to be impartial. And I think what's happening is those lines are being blurred. Maybe some people are getting more of a say, how people are being brought on and under what guise, and that can lead to a mistrust with politicians who want to go on to a particular show. It can lead to mistrust with the general public when they're seeing so much of a one-sided, bit of the story and not getting the whole picture. So
what we're saying is, you think it's not impartial at the minute? We could do better.
Well, there's a huge rise in organisations and news outlets, which aren't governed by these guidelines.
Yes, but I'm going to bring up one in a minute.
And what happens with those? And this is where we are
for-profit companies.
They're for profit, right?
Yes.
And what gets them revenue is clicks.
Yes.
And what gets clicks is clickbait headlines.
Yep. Shocking stories.
Gutter journalism and the sort of things that the sort of things that maybe I wouldn't say is within the public's interest, but they'll go for something that's going to get them a click. Because you'll notice that when you click on, and I'm intentionally not naming them, but if you click on some of these, if you click on some of these journalist articles, you'll notice that you're nearly spending more time scrolling past the ads to get to the content. Yeah. And the reason for that is because each time you click into their link, into this article,
Google Ads pays them.
They're getting paid for all of these different things. And okay, there's an element to say, well, fair enough, that's their revenue model. But there's also another kind of avenue where I think journalists, as well as the general public and politicians and anyone who's going on these, should know that the underriding principle for this person who's talking to you is to make money. Yeah. And how that person makes money is through clicks, and how clicks make money is making sure they're driving people.
I think you're being a bit 2D with this, because yes, you're right in that sense, but there's also the fact when you start seeing that restaurants that are just opening, getting publicity, but other restaurants don't, etc., etc. Why is that? Because they pay the outlet to come down and do a sponsored kind of news article on them. Yeah. So if you think of that, whenever people are covered, for example, say there was a controversial story in a political party, the editor is going to have a boss, and the boss is going to approve the story. And if the boss knows that if he approves the story, it affects a relationship that they have privately, he won't do it, which is what's fucked in journalism. Is for-profit news organisations, or they've got relationships behind closed doors, which is not impartial. So we've got obviously the BBC, but then that's the government's view. So where do we have? Well, how do we bring back good, solid journalism without having? Would it be a law to stop these people having private political connections, for example?
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line between, and again, it's one of these other balances that we have in the UK as a whole, where it's a very, very fine line to tread, because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to tread on free speech.
Like communism. You're going to go down communism, don't mention things.
You don't want this, don't say that. You don't want it to be a place where journalists can't have a fair crack at politicians and can't have a fair crack at...
But I'm saying they should. What I'm saying is that we should know if there's political ties behind closed doors, for example, because I'm in business. I know how business fucking works. If I was able to speak to one of the head honchos, and let's just say, for example, fucking Belfast Live, I know that I could ring him and say, mate, you put out that story about me, come on, like, and then he would go say to whoever it was, put out another one. He's vindicated. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I know that shit goes on. And the general public is now coming wise to this. Yeah. And I just want to bring it up because I haven't wrote down. Is to put a story out about you post the election, and I was like, these just say gutter journalism. I was like, there's no election coming around, and they have picked the stupidest fucking thing ever of an old Instagram post of yours. I was like, that is the stupidest, saddest shit ever, and I thought, is there a political reason behind that? Do they not want the DUP to be getting council seats, or
Dare knows. I have no idea, Well,
you obviously at the time saw this and went, what? Yeah,
and the thing that reassured me in that is that so many people saw it for what it was. This was a joke between me and my wife. What was it when we were probably late teenagers going out? Yeah, and of course, I mean, what was tried to be portrayed by that, or of course, had nothing to do with.
It's ridiculous.
And if anything, I kind of take comfort from the fact that people have to scroll back 12 years to try and find a bit of something that they can. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of, and the thing that I find most disappointing out of it as well is that I have been and continue to be an advocate for getting more younger people involved in politics. Yeah, and as many people as I can say to them, get involved. I've even encouraged people to get involved who I know aren't going to be joining our party, but get involved. People who said have taken an interest, excellent, go and do it. Stick, even if it doesn't mean sticking your name in a ballot paper, go and join a party speak to the people who do represent you, get yourself involved. And what happens, I mean, because of course a headline like that gets clicks. That's going to get people going in, looking at the ads, la-di-da-di-da. But what it also does is...
Was there a political intention there? Because that would smear your name.
Could well have been. But what the net result is obviously very disturbing and disheartening for me and what I had to go through with it. And a story like that also creates a lot of hurt for people who might not have already been hurt, but might have stirred up emotions from, unnecessarily whenever that wasn't the point. So there's a lot of ramifications. But the thing that probably annoyed me the most is that I have now been speaking to people who have said, I was thinking about getting involved with politics, or I was, younger people saying, I was thinking about, maybe in the future sticking my name, but I seen what happened to you and I thought, absolutely no chance. Why would I put myself through that? Why would I put my family? And so we are now in an age where, people are looking at some of our media and going, that is enough to put me off ever wanting to be. I mean, they've never ran a story on me and all the good stuff I've done. They're not running. It's all about what's going to generate.
And there's also the fact that it's cancel culture. Is look, we don't like this person because this person says something. For example, we could even bring up Kevin Hart. He got cancelled off whatever big Academy show it was. He was super excited to do because he'd done a tweet 12 years ago or 10 years ago, and they brought up that tweet, and it was like, come on, the fuck. One, the internet was different back then, and two, I want to see the man alive that walks this earth, that is squeaky clean and doesn't say something at the bar that they don't really mean because it's a bit of banter between mates. There is not a person alive.
There would be scope within it, and this is where there is a serious side to it. If they contacted me and said, Pete, we're taking from this X, Y, and Z, is that what you stand for? And if I had to say, yeah, absolutely, that's of course that's what I meant by that, and I'm keeping that post up, then I think fair enough, that's me taking a position now as an elected representative on a particular subject. But surely to goodness, if someone goes, is this what you meant? And a politician, do you know what? No, it wasn't. That's been taken out of context. I apologize. It's now taken down. I think there has to be, or else we'll not have any more young people involved in politics. There has to be a room for people to acknowledge what was maybe said when they're a kid, in joke or in jest, might not necessarily be how they feel 20 years, 15 years on about it. And we do live in a political sphere where forgiveness is absolutely at the core of people who get to represent us. There's no hiding behind that. There are people within our political system who have been involved with terrorist organizations that have committed murder, and they have a democratic right to be in their job. So, and by that very nature, it has to be, we have no choice but to live in a society where people are able to disassociate from maybe what they have said in the past, or at least put into context that, no, that was a joke, of course.
Well, look, sarcasm and satirical comedy has been a part of British humour for a long time. And now that people can blast wee parts and wee snippets, or they see something and don't know what you're actually saying to each other in a private message, they just take things, like I said, out of context. But you bringing up there about kind of terrorist organisations and the political sphere of Northern Ireland, I think you're exactly right there. There is a very dark side to politics in this country because we have obviously a very coloured past. But forgiveness was obviously at the forefront of, look, we've done wrongs, you've done wrongs, we need to kind of move forward. And fast forward to today's sphere or our today's kind of circumstances with the government not being in government. How do we, again, find that kind of common ground with people we disagree with in a lot of things? How do we get the common ground and move forward? Because Northern Ireland, in my opinion, as a business owner, are in a very unique position here that we could essentially be the new London, the new gateway to Europe. That's what I think, along with staying very strongly in the union, because I do like being in the union. I like using the pound, like the NHS, etc., etc. So, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, to put context into the answer, you have to go back to the kind of earlier days of when this was being negotiated, and the DUP...
Brexit we're talking about here?
No, kind of post-Brexit.
Post-Brexit?
Yeah, post-Brexit,
yeah.
which obviously led to these arrangements coming into place. And
the Windsor Accord we're talking about?
No, they would have been the first to the Northern Ireland Protocol at that stage. And
which was a complete balls up.
Yeah, well, and this is the interesting part. It seems to be that the DUP were the only ones saying that, because all these other parties were saying, no, actually, we need to rigorously implement this. There was other parties who wanted to use it for a political angle because it was better affiliation to what nationalists may have wanted. And yet, ironically, now that we have the Windsor framework, nobody seems to be saying to those parties, well, hang on a second. You can't come out and welcome this new Windsor Fair as the best thing. Whenever you were welcoming the thing before that was causing so much damage and frustration and political upset and I think the interesting thing in all of it has been, from the very outset, the DUP said that as unionists we need to be good neighbours with those who identify as nationalist, and in order to do that, of course, there can't be a border on the island of Ireland. Of course, a hard border on the island of Ireland is not going to be. So we recognise that, and that has been said. That's not just me saying that.
Yeah.
But what is now happening is the opposite. Is that it doesn't seem to be that same spirit of cooperation is being replied with from the nationalist community, because there are parties who are wishing to shoehorn things like the Northern Ireland Protocol, which was hugely upsetting for unionists. It was hugely divisive for unionism, and let's not forget, we had on the other side, like Leo Farad, they were threatening violence. So you can imagine what that does when that currency of negotiation is used. You can imagine what that does for the other side of the community. They're saying, well, hang on a second. They came out and threatened violence if there was going to be any infrastructure, north-south. Now what's happening is you're putting infrastructure and a barrier east-west. You're constitutionally splitting us off from the union. Should we, should we be using that same currency? And of course, nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see violence back on our streets. And so that's why it is a hugely sensitive and politically sensitive time, but it's also very sensitive for business owners who are currently suffering with extra bureaucracy and paperwork. It's a sensitive time. Heard recently, was there a particular chemotherapy drug or something they couldn't get into Northern Ireland because of a particular piece in this legislation? You could go on and on. I've spoke to pet owners who are struggling to, bring their pets within the United Kingdom. The latest thing is going to be parcels. Any parcels moving between the inland GB and Northern Ireland is going to be impacted with checks and customs and vice versa. So these are hugely this is massive. This we're not just talking about a pet issue that the DUP want to kind of take up with this is the future of our country. This is the long-term future of Northern Ireland that's at stake here. It's a really big deal, and I think what is happening now is the Windsor framework is even a response to that, is where the British government, the EU, who, by the way, said that the protocol was there to stay, there was no renegotiation, there was no mandate to change. I think they are now recognising, well, actually, this isn't all the land of milk and honey for Northern Ireland. There are lots of challenges that need to be addressed, lots of, common sense things that you and I sitting here would go, of course that shouldn't happen, but because of the bureaucracy that this piece of legislation was creating, it was. So there's still a bit to go. The DUP have been very clear that they want to see Stormont returned. It was on all of our election literature at the last council election, and it should return on a basis that is fair for everyone, and that includes unionists and nationalists.
Yeah.
So I think there's still a bit to go, but I think it's also fair to at least acknowledge that there's been progress.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to quickly, one of these cameras is going about, so...
Waffling.
Right, let me just respond to what you were saying there around kind of you were giving the DUP's response to kind of what's going on at the minute and how this is a big deal for the country, which it is. I understand
huge.
that big massive deal for the country. But so we had, just because I'm not as versed in this, so you'll be able to educate me. So we had the Northern Ireland Agreement, or what was it called?
Protocol.
Protocol. I had the protocol. Yeah. And the protocol, in my opinion, fucked us, because we're getting fucked from the mainland and we're getting fucked from Europe. They're like, anytime you were trying to buy something, it was more expensive because there's more paperwork to be done. And I think I've seen things go up dramatically as a business. So obviously DUP were advocates for, we're not having this, and there was a lot of protests about it, like, we're not having this, it's splitting us off. And I totally agree, it did split us off, because you wouldn't want to do business with the mainland knowing that it's cheaper to go either south or maybe go France, Germany, Spain, whatever. Especially when you're buying large quantities, the likes of the Henderson's group, or somewhere like that. That would be someone I would have dealt with. So yous kind of pushed for Boris Johnson at the time, I think, pushed for, we need something new. This doesn't work. Is that what happened? And you got the Windsor Accord, or you educate me here?
Yeah, so the Windsor framework is the kind of follow-on from the protocol, and it was, yes, in response to the fact that many people were saying the protocol wouldn't work. Now, there's an argument to be made. Would those changes, would the negotiators in EU and in London, would they have been energised and motivated to have done that if the DUP had have stayed in Stormont and went on the merry way of doing things? Some people argue, yes, there would have been changes. I personally think the evidence is very clear that focused the minds to getting progress. And it has been very difficult, coincide this with the fact that we do have, a cost of living crisis. We do have a crisis which has been 10, 15 years in the making with our NHS.
Ridiculous.
We have a crisis in our schooling system. Yeah. We have underfunding in policing. Yeah. We've a crisis in infrastructure where there's not enough money for all of these. So it's at a very difficult time. And again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier on about Counsel. A lot of these issues are macroeconomic issues which Stormont isn't necessarily going to fix. Things like global rises in inflation, food prices which are affected by way outside of Stormont's control. There's a lot of those things which Stormont isn't necessarily going to be a silver bullet for fixing.
I want to caveat that bit, because we have a lot of farmland here. In the whole of Ireland, you want to go south as well, the whole Northern Ireland, we have a lot of farmland. And with that farmland, we could produce a lot more than what we do. But what we do is we buy cheaper stuff from abroad. So we buy cheaper stuff from Poland, we buy cheaper stuff from Ukraine, anywhere that'll give us it cheaper because it's cheaper labour. Yeah. So we could probably output a lot more food and save money if we had the infrastructure, but we don't. And no one gets pushed into farming these days. If anything, the farmers are clinging on to this world themselves, because I don't see them getting get in the farming. You should start a farm. Why? Because we want to use all the land for new things. It seems like to me, that's my opinion. So I think there is ways that Stormont and our local representatives could help. Yeah. And maybe with the advent of maybe us going into the AI era, because the AI era is here. Just go look at ChatGPT, and it's got a 6 month hold on it, so they can't develop it any further. So once that holds off, things are going to go massively increase in terms of production towards AI. And when that happens, why do we not have something in Northern Ireland where it's like, right, we want to create jobs for people who can produce jobs or who can do prompts for AI, or can get engineers that start doing engineering degrees for AI or whatever, because that would put us at the pinnacle of technology, emerging technology, where it seems like over here, nobody's interested in that.
Yeah,
kind of
I
thing.
mean, to be fair to Northern Ireland, we do have a lot of emerging sectors where we are probably punching above our weight with things like fintech. We're doing really, really well, in terms of the number of jobs that are being created, number of new jobs. We've a lot of expertise in that area. Things like online security, those sorts of things. Our IT industry is actually doing quite well.
Right. But this isn't IT, this is emerging technologies.
Yeah, no, I know.
Which we lack on.
What? There's what?
I think we lack in emerging technologies.
Yeah.
I feel like we are one of the last bastions in the United Kingdom to adopt any new technology.
Oh, really?
I think we are.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I mean, that might
Fair
not be
enough.
true. You might be able to prove that wrong to me. That's just what I feel like whenever, for example, I was in the workforce. I'm not in the workforce anymore.
Yeah.
I felt like everything was quite slower than
Yeah,
what
yeah.
if I was speaking on the Xbox at the time, someone in England.
Yeah,
and I
fair
spoke to you about this at the start,
Yeah.
about how you go to any town or city in the mainland and there's bars, there's outdoor festivals, there's lots of things to do. But in Northern Ireland, there is not much, in my opinion, because there's a lot of bureaucracy around alcohol, for example, over here. And while I'm asking that, I may as well ask your opinion on that.
Yeah.
Do you think kind of the laws, because it seems to me the laws around alcohol are very religious, and is it time that we maybe take the religion out of them alcohol laws? For example, the Easter laws have recently just stopped.
Yeah.
But I'm talking for like licensing. We don't have any more licenses in circulation for bars and pubs. As far as I could see, it's a 100k barrier for entry for any bar or pub, and that's before you do anything.
Yeah.
It's just for your license.
Yeah. I mean, there's that question dips into a number of different realms. So yeah, there, in terms of like policy, I would probably be a bit more towards.
I don't think that's anyone. I think it's just the.
Oh, right, the wind.
Yeah.
I would be a bit more towards a free economy in terms of letting people compete, and letting kind of business owners and the market determine those sorts of things. So, and when it came to the likes of the Sunday licensing and the trading hours.
Yep. So is that a religious thing? Sorry, because I had someone bring it up to me earlier, and I didn't know if it was religious or was it to stop big supermarkets eating up Sundays or something. I wasn't too sure.
Well,
so you
maybe in the past there might have been a religious element where the politicians who were kind of making those laws felt convicted that this is what should be shaped.
Yeah, for a Sunday.
But I think what's more so happening now is that a lot of businesses are actually struggling to get the staff to cover the extra hours and the extra shifts. So it's all right me saying, yes, bar X, Y, and Z or shop X, Y, and Z should be open 24/7, but that has an implication on the owner who has to find the staff to do that and has to make sure that there's the resource to cover the staffing.
But that would be a business decision.
Yeah.
That would be a business decision. That'd be a
Yeah,
strictly
yeah.
business decision for someone who felt like they could make a profit during that time.
And there will be other aspects to it as well. We obviously have planning regulations.
Yes.
So there are things as well where.
But so does mainland UK.
Yeah, and there will be decisions where you can't. You wouldn't want a nightclub to be opened next door to you.
Understandably.
So there will be legislation and bits and pieces in place to make sure that the general public are protected as well.
Yeah, but is that not just so I'm getting things right here? But is that not they put that out to the public that planning permission is potentially going through for a nightclub, and then people can go not having it. It's right next door to X, Y, and Z, and then they go in and they have to kind of state their case. Is that not how it works?
Slightly in that. There still is planning policy documents that states laws and regulations about what is and isn't possible. So whenever an applicant for a planning application puts forward a set of drawings or a case, they still have to be within the planning regulations.
Yes.
So it's whenever there's a grey area or maybe something in the planning regulations that could be disputed or misinterpreted, that's then when the planning committee and ultimately the general public get to decide where they can put objections, and it has to be a material objection to it, but it still has to be objected on the basis of planning policy. It can't just be that 50 people say they don't like something. There has to be 50 people saying planning policy says this, and I interpret that to mean that, therefore a nightclub can't open next door.
Well, I just want to bring up the alcohol one again.
Yeah.
Because I looked at a license and a license was 90 grand plus VAT.
Okay.
So how can we have 90 grand plus VAT in Northern Ireland and then you go mainland UK and it's 2k, it's 2 grand.
Right.
So the barrier for entry to get involved in alcohol here is so ridiculously high that, for example, if I was a young person, say even just early 30s, I've got an idea for a killer bar.
Yeah.
I know somewhere that'll let me start it up,
Yeah.
but I can't do that because there's red tape around alcohol.
Yeah.
I don't mean the premises.
Yeah.
I mean alcohol is being served there.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't know a lot of the detail on alcohol licensing.
But why don't I have more of them?
It does seem like if there's an £88,000 gap between Northern Ireland and what's
ridiculous.
happening, that does seem to be like
It's
there's
ridiculous.
a problem there. And yeah, that ultimately, you know, if you were trying to open a shop or if you had a shop where you wanted to get an alcohol license, of course that's going to be a huge barrier.
But look at our tourism as well. See, I being a tourist, you being a tourist, see when you go somewhere, and I am the kind of person that if I go somewhere, I at some stage probably want to go out for a drink. So people can come to Belfast. Okay, there's a good few options in Belfast, but come down the Carrick, there's 2-3 pubs and maybe a wee bit more, but they're really local pubs that tourists wouldn't go to. I mean, the only pub I think in the Carrick we have that a tourist would go to would be Oni's, just off the top of my head. But these are pubs that have been going for a long time.
I mean, you've got the Windrose as well. You know, they would.
You got the shout out Windrose. Windrose is nice. The Windrose is nice.
But yeah,
but there's no new ones.
Yeah.
Where's the new blood? Where's the new ideas? Where's the new drive for people to come in? Because people go into the town centre for a drink.
Yeah, and I mean, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, Josh, as well. Because not only do we say yes, we want to have those new facilities, be it a new bar, a new shop, a new retail outlet, but I think there's also an onus on us as Carrick people to support them.
But we would make new bar.
Look at the Swift.
A new bar open.
Look at the Swift.
But the Swift, the Swift had a branding problem. The Swift didn't know their arse from their elbow. They were changing what they were doing every other week.
But if we were sitting here and you said to me, Pete, I've got this idea. It's going to be a bar and a restaurant. It's going to be beside the oldest Norman castle in Europe.
It sounds amazing.
Free car parking out in front of it. You'll be looking out over a marina. If you're sitting, depending where you can sit and you can look over the loch, you'll be going, it's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer. Bad management, though. That was bad management.
Could I don't know the details of why it shut down, but it's just another example where, you know, there was a business. Whether it's thriving or not it will be disputed. But ultimately, it didn't do well enough. But
people should have the choice, mate.
Yeah.
Like you just said, if there's an 88 grand difference, and this is a local politician's problem, because this is not mainland UK, I mean, this can be sorted out over here, but there's red tape around things. I feel like we mix religion with laws. For young people that want to go into the town centre on a sunny day, they want to go to somewhere that they feel like is vibey and maybe like a hipster place or wherever. Like I was just in Liverpool and you could go around any street and there was some sort of kind of concept bar or concept restaurant or whatever. One thing that I see in Belfast which I think is awesome is them bikes. You seen them bikes going like that's cool. They probably aren't licensed, but they just get people to bring their own drink and then they don't serve them it. You know what I mean? Like we need to get the red tape around some stuff taken off so that people can thrive. Yeah. Because we have a pretty rich history here and tourism is, from as far as I can see, recovering. Let's give people more options. Let's take some red tape off some shit. Give younger people a chance to maybe open a bar or whatever and start thriving.
Giving it a go.
That's what I think. But going back to just the DUP Sinn Féin stuff around kind of not getting in the government.
Uh-huh.
How do we take that step? How do we get everyone back in there? Because this is a big fucking problem at the minute from both sides going, like for your constituents on both sides or whatever, your supporters on both sides, everyone's going, right, we need something sorted out here.
Yeah.
So how do we get in there?
Well, the DUP have just recently, and when I say just recently, I think it's within the past couple of days, have sent another letter to the British government with kind of ideas and plans, as far as I know. And look, there are a number of things that could be done, and there are a number of things that, if there was the will and the political will, like we've seen with the Windsor Framework, that could have simple fixes to a lot of these problems.
So what is the problems right now?
Well, we have long accepted things like movement of goods.
Yeah.
We have long accepted that if there are products or goods which are coming from GB through Northern Ireland, which will end up in the single market, we understand that there should be some form of check on those goods, because that is moving from one territory to another. It is moving past a customs barrier. However, goods, and this is the current case, even within the Windsor Framework, currently goods which are going from GB that will finish in Northern Ireland are still going to be subject to those checks.
I thought that was stopping then, so you're still going to have to get the EORI number or whatever it is?
Yeah, well, that's all part of the TSS and all the registrations, but they have piloted this green lane, red lane solution, goods that are at risk, good, but it is going to be there seems to be so many problems with that even stuff coming down the green lane, it's difficult to know. You imagine you're a business that trades not just in Northern Ireland but all over, and you're bringing, say, 100 widgets from England into Northern Ireland. You may not know if all of those particular widgets are going to stay in Northern Ireland or within the UK. It could be that you maybe bring them over for that intention, and then a new customer appears. So it's not as straightforward. And so what we are now seeing is, rather than having a system whereby you could have, and this has been in one of the most recent things, a system of mutual enforcement where you would have agreement from the EU and the UK that here are a set of terms you're going to agree to for goods that may leak over. And it's important to put this into context. Mm-hmm. The amount of goods that travel between Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland represent less than 1%, and I actually think it's even 0.5% of the total amount of goods that move in and out of Europe. So what is creating absolute havoc at the minute is over a grain of sand worth of movement of goods. So
is this a Europe stern thing? So Europe saying we're not dealing with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think what has happened, and this is where I believe other parties have potentially dropped the ball in Northern Ireland,
right?
Is whereby they have tried to potentially score a bit of a political point post-Brexit with the protocol, saying, yeah, let's rigorously implement this thing, which, if truth be told, we probably didn't all know the full scope of damage that it was going to do to Northern Ireland.
I think we're talking about Brexit here.
The protocol, right, following that. I think what has happened is that almost like willingness to blindly accept something has nearly allowed the EU to strengthen their position to say, well, we're not going to give them it. If you've only got one party like the DUP who's kicking up about this, why? So the DUP, in fairness, have probably punched above their weight in getting to this, because we've had to do it alone, know, and it's only now whereby we have got those concessions, we have been able to take more time to look at all the details where other parties have said, well, actually, that would be damaging, or that we are now glad to see progress, So it's been really, really difficult. But
so you think the other parties are kind of politically scoring for this, whenever really everyone should be banding together to say, let's think about the
Northern
commerce
Ireland.
in Northern Ireland at the minute, and let's keep it healthy.
Absolutely.
Whereas I agree with you. Whenever the initial protocol came in, all I could see on Northern Ireland business, for example, was people going, "What the heck is going on here?"
Yeah.
My costs have went through the roof because I get all my stuff from mainland UK.
But don't forget, we were sold this as best of both worlds.
In my opinion, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
In my opinion, but it seems like obviously Sinn Féin, their end goal is the United Ireland. That's what they've always said they want. They want the United Ireland. I think we're stronger in a union, and I think a lot of nationalists, because I have a lot of nationalist friends, I think they like the sexiness of it, but they actually like the NHS. Mm-hmm. They like using a pound. They like how the pound's strong as a currency worldwide. Yeah. They like some of them even sneakily have a British passport. Yeah. You know, so
I mean, I have an Irish passport.
So do I. I have
both, and that doesn't challenge my identity at all. But you've just touched on, I think, one of the greatest ironies of this whole movement of a united Ireland, and it's the NHS. You know, you've got the likes of Michelle O'Neill, who will come out saying, we need to protect our NHS, we need to do this for the NHS, yet at the same time saying we want to peddle an agenda that will absolutely flatten it. You know, it's the biggest irony, I think, that sometimes gets missed. You know, it's amazing, and to be fair, they get away with it. A lot of the time, those two dots don't get connected up. You know, when she's saying that on TV or she's saying that in an interview, I don't understand why the first thing everyone's saying, well, why do you want to leave it? Why do you want to jeopardize all those tens of thousands of jobs that we have? You know,
well, again, I think it's a flirtatious thing at the minute, because even looking at the state of Irish politics at the minute, it is, in my opinion, fucked. Worse than what we're like, because they have a housing crisis. I have a private interest with someone who is currently got a ban on their business. Their business is short stays in Airbnb and Booking.com, etc. They have got a ban because they can't use their own asset, their own homes. They cannot do this because there's a housing crisis and they should private rent it. Since when is it the government's position to tell you what to do with your own fucking land? And
this is another huge irony, and I seen that. I wish I had the figures, the mind, or even the report in front of me. But Sinn Féin are now, in terms of popularity, the largest party down south.
Yes, I had that wrote down. We're going to talk about that. But
and here's the biggest irony: they are gaining popularity by saying we need to fix housing, we need to get more houses, we need to do X, Y, and Z for housing. And somebody did a piece of research on all of the big planning decisions in the south, and was able to pull up, here was a block of 100 flats. It was vetoed by Sinn Féin in this council. They all voted against it. Here was a thing in Cork, you know, it was a development of whatever number of houses, voted down by a Sinn Féin council. Here was a thing, and they went down all the list of all these different areas in the Republic of Ireland where you have on one hand Sinn Féin being this lobbyists group saying, housing's this big issue, we get us into government, we're going to fix housing, but yet at this very same time are voting down developments. We don't want an apartment block here, we don't want that. So, you know, this is where politics really comes into action, whereby it's fine being able to say all these things. It's fine being able to say what's maybe popular, but whenever your feet are held to the fire, are you going to make the right decisions? Are you going to, in areas where it's maybe easier to vote down a development of houses, are you going to support those because you know it actually is within the greater interest of your community, even though you might have 10 or 15 people shouting and screaming at you? Yeah, that's the big test. And I think at the minute Sinn Féin are failing that, but because their marketing and PR is so good, they're able to sort of,
it's almost like the pickpocket, isn't it? Look at my hand, look at my hand, look at my hand while he takes your watch. So I mean, let's touch on that. They are now by popularity the largest party in Northern Ireland. And I'm going to caveat this with my opinion. I feel like the young people do not connect with DUP because of a lot of people now identify as atheist, and the DUP has a lot of religious beliefs, right? And this is then on TikTok, on Instagram, on all this, it kind of whenever you push any kind of religious belief at the minute in society, and people see that as a connection to the laws and the things that the DUP is passing, become very unpopular. And I think the younger generation, I'm talking to you about alcohol licenses, I would say I'm still holding on. I'm the younger generation, and I see these things and it fucking pisses me off. So whenever all these people see these different bad stories around DUP, you're losing the younger generation. The older generation is still voting for you. The younger generation is not. So that Sinn Féin is picking up on the younger generation because young nationalists all vote Sinn Féin, as far as I know. A lot of them do still vote. Obviously, SDLP do get votes, but the majority of them are going Sinn Féin, and it's not because of their party policies. It's because almost they have the flair. I'm not gonna say this right. So during the 12th, they have the flail or whatever it is. They're doing these kind of events targeted at young people and listen to what young people want, and they're doing these things where the DUP isn't at the moment. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
How do you think you get the young vote back?
Yeah, I mean, there's
and do you agree that you are losing a bit of the young vote at the minute?
Do you know? I'm going to answer the question. So this isn't me trying to divert away. You'd be surprised of the number of people, even in some of the surveys, and you can look at the Lucid Talk surveys, there still is a healthy number of people, 18 to 30, who are voting for the DUP. Now, I'm saying that, but on the other hand, I absolutely recognise what you're saying. You know, the DUP has a branding issue too. You know, there has been a lot that has happened in the past. There have been things that people within the party in the past have said that I certainly wouldn't want to stand over or condone. And I think what the era that we are in now is that unionism has to be the overarching umbrella. You know, it's in the party name. We're Democratic Unionists, and I think that the direction that unionism probably has to find itself is a direction where we're working together, where there is a space for, if there is somebody who is very religious and holds religious views, you know, you can hold those views, but equally, if you are an atheist and you don't hold religious views, that's fine as well, because the only qualifier here is that we're unionists. Yep. And I think it's important to state that both of those should be respected and protected. Yeah. You know, ultimately too, we are in a democracy where people have the chance to vote for that. Yeah. And so what I hope for, and the future that I hope for Northern Ireland, is where we can have a sensible debate about the union, where we can have sensible conversations, and where that will lead to is people getting a better understanding of what the union means, what the benefit, because it's easy, you know. If you notice, whenever the debate about a united Ireland is brought up, a lot of the stuff is the very soft emotive. You know, you'll hear people talking about things like identity. They'll talk about things like culture and a sense of feeling and belonging. Well, Pete, all those things are very important. Yes. But where I think unionism has to do is actually marry those to the economic and the very practical benefits of being part of the union, and making sure that being a unionist doesn't mean that you're a working is only for working class Protestants. Yeah. You know, being a unionist should be an overarching umbrella, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Catholic, atheist. The union is for all, and so I agree with you. But I wanna come back at you and say, I do agree. I am for the union, and I'm not going to bullshit people on that. Yeah. But I have got Catholic friends who identify very heavily as Irish. Yeah. And we do have an Irish heritage, and obviously it was Orange Men and etc. etc. We need, for the people who identify as Irish, we need to let them
let them have their space. Respect the likes of the Flair or whatever. I'm getting this so wrong. I know someone's going to call me on this.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be any expert on it, so I'm not going to call you out.
Well, look, we need to respect the things that they respect.
Yeah.
I wasn't brought up in that world, so
Yeah.
I can't speak for them.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that if unionism wants to move forward in the DUP, you need to involve young people.
Yeah.
And we need to get away from you versus them. Because see this you versus them shit, the political score and all, it doesn't fucking help working class families. And most people in Northern Ireland are working class families, and the small middle class, and the even tiny fucking minute higher class in Northern Ireland. Most people here do not fucking care.
Yeah. And I think, there's a point to be made too that nationalists, your friends who are Catholic and strongly
from the
feeling
Falls
Irish,
Road, by the way, the heaviest one.
I think it's fair to say, they are free to have that identity.
Absolutely.
They are no longer persecuted for, if they want to have an Irish passport, they can go and get an Irish passport. If they want to identify as being Irish, they can do so. If they want to learn Irish and speak it, there are plenty of Irish language speaking schools that they can go to.
So you're for supporting their identity, but you want to stay in the union. The union support is the most important.
Absolutely.
And then obviously you'll have the other side of people, like people around this area are very much British, identify very much as British, and amalgamating these people because I think as a society, for me growing up, when I was younger, I didn't really know, but now, like being in the workforce and doing business, people don't really, behind closed doors, these political views kind of go out the window. Like you see someone, you meet them, you don't think, I don't like you. Whereas 30 years ago, it was you didn't like them because you were scared in case they beat you up or whatever. So I think moving forward, definitely dropping the you versus them and thinking more of how do we make everyone prosperous, because when everyone's prosperous, things are going well.
Yeah. And George, I think what's even worse at the minute is that the fighting hasn't been us versus them. It's that unionists are fighting amongst each other. We're in a place, and this is one of the things that I probably get most on the doors, is people talking about unionist unity, everybody working together. Yet in reality, what is happening in the media is that we're tearing lumps out of each other. And for me, that is more of a frustration than any, because number one, it's not what people are asking for in the doors. They're not asking for unionists to fight amongst themselves. Yeah. And number two, why do it? Why tear strips out of each other whenever we ultimately, as unionists, have let's not only respect that there's a space for Irish people in our side, but let's respect each other. Yeah. Let's be respectful in the way that we talk to each other. Dial the tone down a bit. And
well, this is it. But I hope to stay in the union. I want to stay in the union. I never want to see a United Ireland. I'm sorry, I don't. It's not something I want. But I just hope that the kind of politics that we have at the minute kind of tone down their hostilities with each other, and people. I'm not saying alliance but I'm just saying that we get on more on both sides of the divide in terms of politics, because young people if you polled young people, and I'm saying like 16 to 21, I'm going to say in their list of priorities in terms of politics, it's very, very, very low. They don't follow it. They don't
especially
know.
At the minute.
Yeah.
Especially at the minute.
Whereas like you said, there's a cost of living crisis. There's people struggling to pay their mortgages because, interest is going up and people are getting 200, 300. I'm sure you're getting DMs about this, because some people are like going, I'm going to be homeless, which is heartbreaking. It's a heartbreaking thing. The
mortgage rate's about to double. Yeah. It's crazy.
Wow. What are people going to do about that, Pete?
I know, it's crazy. And, this is one of the things that I really worry about, because I, like many of my colleagues, want to see Stormont back up and running. But my big concern is that because so much pressure has been put on the DUP, and quite rightly so, like my background's marketing, if I was in these other political parties, I'd be doing the exact same thing. You know, they are playing the right game.
Yeah.
But what my genuine worry is, and I've heard this from people on the doors, my worry is that because of the angling and the political messaging that has been taken by other parties, is that Stormont has been painted into this sort of panacea, silver bullet, fix-all solution. You know,
it never has been, has it?
Exactly. And people seem to be quick to forget that a lot of these problems that we're saying, let's get Stormont back to fix right now, have been happening for the past 10, 15 years when we've had Stormont. So my frustration is then, well, to those parties saying, get into Stormont and fix it, I'm saying, well, where were you? You know, where were you to support whenever X, Y, and Z was going through? Where were, you know, without getting bogged into the details, you look at the NHS, we've had the Ben Gore report for years, which has been a report to improve the NHS that we have in Northern Ireland by consolidating services. Why has that not been implemented? Has there been, you know, regardless of Stormont up or down, has it not been done? And so,
but
things like
Pete, there is the money that is not being taken because the money is being looked after by Westminster, and Westminster's not going to think, oh, the people in Northern Ireland need this service and that service. It's up to our elected representatives. They actually go, we need this money for this service, and then we find the money, because there was so many billion that we couldn't touch because you needed to be in Stormont to touch that money. And we're having the civil service going, we're going to crumble here. We are not getting enough money. We're cutting this, we're cutting that. The police is coming out going, look, your police is not going to be on the streets because we're cutting whatever it was, 40 million or whatever it was. We need this sorted. We do need this sorted.
And there's no doubt, you know, and a lot of these budget pressures that you're seeing were here not because of Stormont being down, but are as a result of things like price of energy going up. So departments don't have that same amount of clout and money anymore. Things like you've seen the amount of unions being involved in negotiating pay rises.
Almost all of them.
You know, so every civil service department has had their budget for salaries go up, and so these pressures are there regardless of Stormont being up or not, and again, this is where I kind of worry that when and if Stormont does get back, that the general public are sort of waiting there going, you know, for all these problems to be fixed, when the harsh reality is we have a number of years of really tough and unpopular decisions to be made.
Right. Well, I want to come back to you with this.
Okay.
One, someone told me to ask you this.
Okay.
So it's up to you to answer it.
That's all right.
And they asked, did you get the vaccine?
Okay.
Did you get the vaccine?
Well, I think I'm going to answer honestly. No, I am going to answer honestly, but I would ask you, and I would also ask them, do you think that people should have the right not to answer that question?
Yes. That's what I say. I think that this person asked me to ask you. Yeah. This wasn't a me question. This was a him question, which I'm putting forward to you.
Yeah.
For me, I'll give it. I didn't take the vaccine because my missus was pregnant, and I just thought, there's not enough done on it.
Yeah.
COVID at the time, horrible, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I'm young. You're young.
Yeah.
So I didn't take it.
Yeah.
So do you?
Yeah. So I did take. I had the Oxford first and the booster.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So what do you think now, Pete?
I think the interesting point around it, and probably where this person is coming from with it as well, which is kind of ironic because it's generally the people who do believe that general members of the public should have that information as private are normally the ones they ask, did you get the vaccine? Yeah. That's the kind of irony. But I do believe, and this is something, to be fair to the DUP, again, we're one of the few parties who were standing against this, often at a time when we didn't have enough votes to vote it down. Things like the COVID passport was such a waste of money, in my opinion.
Well, it was a massive amount of money, and then our battery's died. 2 seconds. Right. We'll finish this off last 10 minutes. Right, guys, this has been a pretty long one with Pete. So we're gonna it's all good. We're gonna continue on for kind of 10 minutes or so, audio only, just to wrap up the pod. So if you're interested in that, jump on Apple Music or jump on Spotify, and we'll see you over there.